You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Hey everyone, I'm senior video producer Jeff McCobb, and we are back with another CinemaBlend roundtable debate, because over 21 years ago, if you can believe it was that long, The Matrix was released.
A world where anything is possible.
It had two follow-ups that weren't quite as well received. However, Lana Wachowski is returning for The Matrix 4.
At last.
I mean, I'm stoked personally, but this leaves us with a lot of questions. Where are they gonna go? What do they need to fix from last time? Is this even a good idea? So I've gathered some big Matrix fans. Welcome Mike, Braden, and Corey. Say what's up, guys.
Hey guys.
Hey-o. What's up, guys?
So as I said before, Lana Wachowski will be returning to write and direct. She will not be returning with her sister Lily, but she has been working quite a bit since then. I don't quite know what's going on with production at this point, so I'm gonna throw to Corey Chichizola.
He knows more than you can imagine.
Who has written a fair amount of our Matrix 4 content, and so, bro, just give me an update. What is going on with production right now? Who's involved?
So production is indeed underway. Unfortunately, the pandemic has forced the movie to be pushed back quite a bit. So we're going to be waiting a while before we get to actually jack back into the Matrix.
Is something wrong?
Okay.
But the production was in full swing in San Francisco at the time before all the sets around the world were shut down. They were making massive explosions. They were doing bananas stunts. And then it all got put on pause. But production has resumed right now in Berlin. A lot of TV and film sets are going abroad because it's a little bit easier to install once the safety procedures and stuff, and there's just less folks around that are exposed to COVID. So they are back in it. The whole cast is doing their thing. We don't know exactly what they're doing. They're keeping it pretty tight.
Right.
But the cast itself is really exciting, and we're still getting casting announcements all the time, including this past week. It's not a ton of returning people. So Carrie-Anne Moss and Keanu Reeves, they were announced from the jump when the project was announced. They were like, don't worry, they're coming back.
I don't believe this is happening.
We don't really get how these characters are coming back since they fully died in the Matrix
Right.
Revolutions. Along with that, Jada Pinkett Smith is back as Niobe, which is really exciting. And then kind of two smaller characters from the franchise have been announced. So Lambert Wilson is back as the Merovingian. I can never say that. And then just this week it was announced that Daniel Bernhardt will be back as Agent Johnson. So that's a character from the Matrix Revolution, or the Matrix Reloaded, the second film. He hasn't come back since, so it's another big question mark around it.
Only human.
But it's the first confirmation that we're going to get some agent action in the movie, because Hugo Weaving is not set to return as Agent Smith. So we weren't really sure who the villain was.
Whatever you want.
We still don't really know anything, but we know at least one of these agents are going to be back, and I'm sure doing lots of high kicks and fighting Keanu Reeves on moving vehicles.
Whoever plays an agent, I just want like a really low, nostalgic Mr. Anderson groan. That's all I'm really asking for.
Mr. Anderson?
Mike, I know you're a big fan of the franchise. Is this even a good idea to return in this capacity?
I think it is a good idea to return, just because I don't think Lana Wachowski would want to go back to this. I don't think even Keanu Reeves would want to go back to this if there wasn't at least a kernel of an idea to bring back the Matrix. And the thing about the franchise is, while there is that set trilogy that we know everything about, there's all this other lore that sets up so many other ways to go. And there's already some promising rumors as to what we might be seeing in terms of how this new era of Matrix is going to unfold.
I don't know the future. I didn't come here to tell you how this is going to end.
Yeah, like I remember the Animatrix when that came out. I was all about this when I was a kid, man.
Dude, the Animatrix is so underrated, and it needs to be included in every box set forthwith. They've been leaving it out lately.
It had like 3 good episodes, 3 really solid ones, but yeah, I agree that everyone should watch that. Braden's hot take up in this is that he's a defender of the Matrix Reloaded.
No, what happened happened and couldn't have happened any other way.
So I think I already know the answer to this question. But
Yes.
is this a good idea for them to return for a fourth film this late?
I go back and forth. I think I'm giving the Matrix franchise a pass just because I grew up with it and it's near and dear to my heart. One of the first movies my dad ever pulled me out of school to go see, which was just like, that's the coolest thing your dad can do when you're like in 6th grade. Whoa. If you would ask me 20 years later, do we need to go back to a franchise and bring back a couple characters, but not everybody, and not reboot, but continue something that left with a pretty definitive end, I would say, no. What is this, Disney? Are we just doing live action remakes? Like, I don't get excited about that sort of thing. But, like Mike mentioned earlier, Keanu's attached. We've got Carrie-Anne Moss attached, and there has to be something. Lana's back. There has to be something in the script that's making these guys say, okay, this isn't a cash grab. We're coming back, and it's going to be fun, and it's going to be good. So I'm cautiously optimistic. That's how I'm moving forward with The Matrix 4 right now.
Yeah, when I remember, it's funny, I had a similar experience. Like when I was a kid, I wasn't generally allowed to watch rated R movies, but my parents were like, you have to see this movie, because it was such an intricate it was groundbreaking in a lot of ways, specifically visually. They had like the bullet time effect in the first film, which was revolutionary for film in general. And then in the next two films, they felt like they had to up their game, and they really hit us with a lot of cheesy visual nonsense that is really hard for me to get past. Some of those scenes just like drag on. Like in Revolutions, all the Agent Smiths.
Don't you dare. Don't you dare.
What, did you like that? Did you like that scene?
First of all, I love the sequels, and I love Revolutions and how it wrapped up. I needed that big sort of fight with Agent Smith, and that was just everything.
It was just so much stuff.
There's that scene, I believe in Reloaded, where Neo is fighting guys, and he pulls the metal bar out of the ground, and he's just taking baseball bat swings at Agent Smith's left and right, and the CGI, it just has not aged well.
Maybe we did something wrong.
I'll be the first to admit. But
that's fair.
That's what you get when you're literally breaking new ground with visual effects and cinematography.
Right.
Like, they're not going to age usually well.
And think about how cool
but
something like that
did.
would be if with like a huge budget in 2020. Like it could look so much better, and it just gets me even more excited about the film.
See, I wasn't a hardcore Matrix kid growing up necessarily. Like, I liked them, they were fine, but they weren't like, it wasn't my franchise. It wasn't my like nerdgasms did not come from the Matrix. But I'm more excited about this one because I was such a wacky Sense8 fan. And I feel like that's where Lana is now. And if she can apply, the action scenes in the series, they were bananas. And there were no visual effects. It was just people kicking butt.
Someone tell me just what in the hell is going on here?
And I was very impressed. So if we can merge these two things into one, I would be very excited. And there's I think 4 Sense8 cast members on this cast, which is
really
doubly exciting.
I am such a big fan of Sense8. I've watched that series a couple times. I'm obsessed with it. And when I introduce people to Sense8, I don't even explain the idea that it's it's these 8 interconnected people who can assume each other's body. That's just an afterthought, because what that show's really about is the human connection and the stories between them. It's about social issues, and it's just it deals with really heavy subject matter in this sci-fi backdrop. So I agree with Corey on that if she brings that same emotion to this story and focus on that first, and then give us all the action that we know she's so good at creating, it could be really special. Corey, what do you think that coming off of the last two, off of 2 and 3, what do they need to do better in order to make The Matrix 4 successful?
Well, I think what you were saying, a focus on story, I think is really helpful. Keanu Reeves has been teasing that he's just been really enjoying sharing very cryptic words about this movie without actually revealing anything. One of them was about the script being this epic love story. And I think that was always part of the original trilogy, but it wasn't necessarily what the films were about.
I love
that could be a hint that the story is taking a little more emotional toll in addition to the cool action stuff that we're all looking forward to. I'm really curious. I'm kind of wanting to see some overt queerness in this one. There's been a lot of talk about the original movie being a transgender allegory, even though they couldn't really talk about it at the time. So I'm eager to see if that comes to fruition. I mean, as we just were talking about Sense8, that was like the queerest show ever. So I'm eager to see if that comes out a little more now that we have a fuller understanding of kind of what was going on with Lily and Lana at the time of writing the original 3.
Well, they kind of have sort of seeded that sort of fluidity of gender and queerness into their movies. And I agree with Corey that I want to see more of the identity politics that the Wachowskis have always sort of skirted around come into the forefront, because the whole thing with Switch, everybody knew it and everybody was talking about it on the internet, and then finally just to have that acknowledged as of late, it's like, wow, we could really push things in such a new direction.
Go on your left. No, your other left.
I think with to another extent, with the past couple movies that they've done, the Wachowskis have shown that they can work with more emotion and also better effects. Cloud Atlas is a movie that I still tear up every time I get to the end of that whole story. And they're just tackling these bigger, grander visions, and I feel the training wheels are off for Lana, and she's ready. And I can't wait to see what she does.
Braden, what do you think we need to see from The Matrix 4 to improve on...
I do just want to add that I'm a huge Cloud Atlas fan. That score is 11 out of 10. I will listen to it while I write all the time. It's so good. But what does The Matrix 4 need for me personally to be a success? It needs to be something different. Fun. It needs to be, we've got new characters introduced, but we also have some of the old cast. And while I'm sad Lawrence Fishburne isn't reprising his role as Morpheus,
As you no doubt have guessed, I am Morpheus.
I'm ready to see new characters in that space. I don't want to watch the same story 4 movies in a row. So that's why I'm excited to see, like Neil Patrick Harris is added on now. Pass the torch to a new cast of characters if this is what we're going to do with this story. The playground and the world that you can play in The Matrix is quite literally endless and infinite. So why not just push the boundaries, blow down some barriers and do something absolutely insane. Which is exactly what the first movie did to all of us when we watched it for the first time. So if they can kind of recreate that magic and kind of, like Mike said, take off the training wheels, I think it can really be something special and a really nice cap.
Do you think that it's going to be a direct sequel and we're going to follow the same narrative? Or do you think like there's a possibility that this is going to be kind of more anthology-esque and like a brand new story but using the same characters?
Some things never change.
I'm looking at it as sort of like a transition, like a passing of the torch. Like I think we're gonna get I'm hoping that we can really wrap up Trinity and Neo's story, which I already think is wrapped up and doesn't need to go any further. But if that's who we need to give the torch to the next cast, I'm all about it. I'll watch Keanu Reeves kick ass all day long. That's a no brainer for me.
My name is Neo.
But if that's the vehicle that Lana wants to take to introduce us to all this new storytelling, sure, I'm in.
Do you think in that sense would like Keanu be the new Morpheus? Is he do you think he could be like scouting like a younger hacker or something to bring into the fold?
I would be so giddy in the theater, just laughing. I'd be so happy. He does like a little pill sequence. Oh my God! Don't even get me started. And I'm talking about doing something new, but I'm just getting excited about old references. So
Trinity is the Oracle now.
Yeah. Trinity has a plate of cookies in the trailer.
Take a cookie.
I mean, you go into the cyclical nature of the Matrix, that kind of feels like the perfect way to go. Like, there have already been, I think, 6 iterations of the one.
Deja vu.
So now we're on our 7th. There's been several iterations of the one, and we're on the new one. And I think I've already heard people saying, well, what if whoever the one was in the last generation gets moved up to Morpheus, and then the new one slips in, and it all just kind of progresses from there. Like, eventually, it probably is going to be something like we saw with the Star Wars sequels, where it'll introduce people on familiar enough ground, but then the circle has to be broken, and new ground has to be branched into.
I think The Matrix was definitely about Neo and the One, but you can get real crazy with your theories and argue that Neo isn't even the One, and the Oracle tells him, not this time around, kid. Maybe next time.
I'm not the one.
So I think there's a lot of, like I said earlier, there's a lot of characters, and if that's what we're getting is vignettes of different characters living in the Matrix and moving the mission forward and fighting the machines, 2 thumbs way up. I think that's really exciting storytelling, and I think that if there's anybody capable of it, it's Lana.
But will they make a buggy video game? Did you guys play that video?
Bring back the video game tie-in.
That was why. I mean, that's another way like that Lana was just like the Wachowskis were just so ahead of the time. They were like, we're gonna make this video game and like shoot new footage with the actors and make it canon.
Yeah,
girl,
right?
Like that's fierce.
Yeah.
It was a really fun video game, by the way. I remember playing that one. That was nuts. I feel like these days, sci-fi is going in the opposite direction. They're starting to go more practical, you know. And that's the charm of modern big budget films. Like Corey said, like Sense8 is all just practical action. They know how to shoot that, you know? And so I don't foresee this one being as over the top. And I think that's going to be the really important thing, is it needs to be more grounded, needs to be more realistic. Taking a step back and going to like a more simplistic, practical route and it being about humans is what's really important.
It's also going to be insane to see how the air of press and publicity surrounding this movie goes, because you go back to the original Matrix movies, that whole cloud of secrecy is almost impossible to maintain today. And yet, how did the Matrix start? There was that Super Bowl ad, and what is thematrix.com? And then even with the sequels, I remember, they're shooting back to back, and there was all these crazy rumors like, there's going to be a sequence where they go back to a past Matrix in the 80s, or, there's going to be this low altitude helicopter chase. And it's just going to be really nuts to see how the internet, how they even play their hand with promoting this movie up until releasing it.
Yeah, I hadn't really considered that. Every little thing had to be revolutionary. Every little piece of marketing. You know what I mean?
It broke so much ground.
It's it.
Powerade, man.
All right. Well, I want to get some closing thoughts. I mean, you know, we really don't know much about it. I mean, Corey pretty much gave us the lowdown on all the information that's out there so far.
But there's way too much information to decode the Matrix.
We're writing stuff. You know, every little bit of information that's out there, we're putting something out. But let's start with Braden. Well, what's your confidence like in the film? Are you excited for its release?
Oh, I'm excited regardless. As a lifelong fan, I mean, I'm hugely influential trilogy for me personally, and really got me into movies at a young age. So I'm, regardless of what it ends up being, I will be in the theater, hopefully, fingers crossed, seeing it the day it comes out. I'm absolutely excited, and you know, in Keanu we trust.
You have to trust me.
If he's down for the script at the peak of his action star career, I'm down to ride along with him.
Yeah, I would say I am feeling cautiously optimistic as well. Like I said, Sense8 did a lot for me as far as just having me really love Lana's work and a very specific film style. As long as it's a narrative that is focused and character focused, then I'm down. Let's do it. And yeah, I'm just excited to go back to the movies and see a Matrix movie. It's like some of these franchises, depending on what your age was, like you were pretty young, so going to see it as an adult is exciting. You know, it will be your first time. Like I could, you know, go for drinks before the Matrix or whatever it is. You know, it's just a different experience.
Want a drink?
When you're like a fully grown person. It's been 21 years. So I'm pretty jazzed.
Man. That makes me feel hella old, because it was like when The Phantom Menace came out and my parents took me to see Star Wars. They're like, my parents took me to see Star Wars when I was a kid. That's and you can buy your own ticket legally. We haven't even mentioned that.
Yeah.
Mike, do you have any closing thoughts? Where's your confidence at?
I went and saw The Matrix last year when they did the big like 20th anniversary screenings in like Dolby sound, and they cleaned up the print and everything. The feelings that I got watching that movie on a screen for the first time, because again, like you guys, couldn't go to the theater to see the first one, couldn't even get my dad to just buy a ticket and let me go. They're like, no, he has to be there with you. It's like, fine, whatever. Seeing that and experiencing it Full Throttle made me so anxious to get back into that world, and I am so excited to see what Matrix 4 brings. I've been in the tank for the Wachowskis forever, and just I think there's nowhere to go but up with this. So yeah, drink more Powerade, folks. And I'm surprised no one else has done this in here. Maybe I'm the only Archer fan, but Lana! What? You've got this. You've got this.
What do you guys think? Where's your confidence at with The Matrix 4? Is it a good idea? Are you excited? Let us know in the comments below and keep the conversation going. Mike, Braden, Corey, thanks for being here, guys.
He is the one.